You've heard about my general interest in filmmaking as a young person and then my endeavors in short films and theatrical productions as an adult. And now it's time to relate to you an incident that is pivotal in the history of my quest to make a feature film. I have related this incident before on Facebook and in a blog and even on YouTube before. Some of you may have heard it. Some people may be rolling their eyes thinking, again, Brian? But this will be the official, on-the-record presentation of the story that will last for all time. And so here we go. Sometimes I'll be a part of a conversation in person or online where somebody says, "Can you name a movie that has changed your life?" And most of the time I think, no, not really. I have my favorite films. I have things I enjoy watching, but changed my life? And then I have to remind myself there is one. There is one that was pivotal in getting me moving forward on making a motion picture. And that is The Shape of Water by Guillermo del Toro. It was February 13th, 2018, when I went down to Regal Cinemas in Bend, Oregon to watch the film. First of all, I am a fan of Guillermo del Toro's work. I liked the Hellboy films, Pan's Labyrinth. I love his creativity in bringing fantastical settings and fantastical creatures to life. To watch a Guillermo del Toro film is to be taken into a world that Hollywood, American Hollywood, just does not create anymore. They, after The Lord of the Rings at least, they seem to have lost that really imaginative storytelling style. And of course, even Peter Jackson, who directed Lord of the Rings, is not American. Maybe there's something about creative elements coming from cultures still steeped in folk tales and mythology and the ability to see things in a different way that make what I consider interesting movies. And then it had also been up for Best Picture. It had been nominated, and I was in the process of trying to see all of the Best Picture winners. So between my enjoyment of the director and my interest in seeing the Best Picture winners, I decided to go see it. And I sat down in the theater, and the movie started, and it quickly became interesting and enjoyable. And then about halfway through, we hit this pivotal moment where, maybe a slight spoiler alert, our hero and one of her friends and her flatmate are all working together to rescue a being from a government laboratory. It was the conjunction of multiple elements, including the villain trying to stop them, and the music and just everything. I really felt like I was in the presence of a very skilled, maybe even master storyteller. And from there, the film continued, and I just found myself getting more and more sucked in until the film ended and the end credits rolled. And once the story was over and those credits were going, I realized just how much I had been holding my breath, how much I had been breathing quite shallowly, because I was actually taken in by the film, really taken in by the film. That doesn't happen often. And I started to come down off of that. I started to be released from the tension of the storytelling, from the engagement of the storytelling. And I started to shake a little. And as I stood up, I was the only one in the theater, I stood up and started to leave. I started to cry a little. And by the time I got to my car, I was sobbing. Not because the movie itself is so intrinsically beautiful. There are a lot of elements about it I object to as a Christian, as a religious person. It was violent. There's language, but because it was so well told, it shook me. Something about it shook me. I drove home crying. And the shaking was with regards to myself. I started to realize I had just sat in the presence of an expertly made movie. And I started to become very aware of just how much I had not been pursuing my dream of making a film. I had that dream when I was 13 or 14, whenever Dad brought home that first VHS camera, and I fell in love with filmmaking. And then I went to college. I got a degree in it. I had a great time doing that. And then from about the age of 23 to, where are we now, minus 8 years, 43, I'd have to do the math, but for 30 years, I sat on it. I did little things. We talked about the films that I made. We talked about the plays that I was in. And I started to realize that for 30 years, not all 30 years, I wouldn't have been ready to make a feature film when I was 15 and 16. There were, in those 30 years, there were formative years. There were educational years. There were years of practice and gaining experience. But I think for at least 10 of those, I was doing everything else, the short films and the plays, to hide from the intimidating factors of making an actual film, of putting together something that's 90 minutes to 2 hours, and doing it not just as an amateur. One could argue that technically I've made a couple feature films. I made them on zero budget with my home video camera and some of my drama students. They are completely amateur. I don't really count them as having fulfilled my dream. And I began to reflect, I had been scared. I had been timid about the idea of reaching out to anybody, asking for money, asking for help, and trying to navigate everything it takes to put together a film. And that's what had me crying. Just so many years wasted. Not completely, no. I was still, even the short films and the plays were positive, but what they were, was they were minor outlets. So I'd get the artistic urge, and rather than focus it on making a film, I would let out that urge on a play. I would let out that urge on a short film, instead of saying now is the time. And so February 13th, 2018, I said, now is the time. I did finally recover from that sobbing incident and have moved forward from there. But that is definitely the moment. That is the day that I see myself saying it's time to be courageous. That my mind actually shifted from I'll do one more short film, I'll do one more play, to it is time. Now, if you're doing the math, you'll note that it has been nearly 8 years even from that point, 2018 to 2026. Yes, nearly 8 years. I will relate that in more detail in the next episode, because so far in 2026, I don't have any breaking news on the film production. I am working on a film, and it came to a pause so that I could focus as a family man on Christmas and New Year's and all of that. But now that the holidays are over, I'm catching up on some things, and then I will get that ball rolling again and finish up on that. But I think to detail for you the thought processes that came between 2018 and now will take another episode. From here forward, it will be referred to as The Moment, or maybe the Great Awakening or something like that, so I don't have to keep saying February 13th, 2018. Just remember that date, know that it's important to me, and we'll go from there. Okay, well, I will leave it at that, and see you next week on Brian's Big Movie.